So the project that I want us to look at is a 4-story high residential apartment building. And let's say we want to check the daylight performance for apartments found on level 2. So let's see what we have there. So on level 2 we have 4 apartments, 4 3-bedroom apartments, and we want to calculate the daylight performance for the living areas and the bedrooms. When it comes to the bathrooms, hallways and storages, they do not require any daylight, so we will not include them in the calculations. So I will only select the rooms that do require daylight, and as we said, those are the bedrooms and living areas. For that, I already have a selection saved, apartments B. Okay, so on this floor plan we will have 16 rooms that require daylight, and basically after you have made your pre-selection of rooms, in the modify tab you will be provided with a Naviate daylight command, which you can just run and the calculations will start immediately. For the purpose of this demo, I have increased the speed of the calculations, so they will not take much of our time. So as soon as the calculation finishes, we will be provided with a complete set of daylight data, which we will review in just a moment. This is the output that Naviate Daylight provides to you. You will be provided with a list of all your rooms that you have chosen for the daylight calculations and an extensive set of daylight data for each of those rooms. The most important data for you is to be able to see if your rooms are meeting the daylight ratio requirements. That's one. And if your rooms are meeting the average or median daylight factor requirements. That's two. Some additional data that you can see here are the minimum, average and maximum luminance values that are provided by the calculation engine, and thus we provide them here for you. Additionally, you will be able to see what the calculation height for the daylight factor calculation is, and you will be able to set it for each of these rooms individually. Some additional things that you will be able to see is what is the floor area, what is the actual and corrected glass area for each of these rooms, and thus in the end those will give you the daylight ratio results. But when looking this dialog from a distance, you will see that on the left side we have provided some green and red indicators for you, and basically they are telling you if these rooms, each of these rooms is meeting the daylight ratio and the daylight factor requirements based on the selected standard. And the currently selected standard which we use for this demo is the Norwegian building regulation standards for dwelling units. So based on these standards, you can see here that some of these rooms are not meeting the requirements for daylight factor and daylight ratio. So you can start looking at each of these rooms one by one and figure out what you can improve within these spaces in order for these rooms to meet the requirements. One tool that will help you in this task is the comment section here, and this is the design suggestion functionality that we have mentioned in the beginning. So in this comment section you will be provided with some guidelines when it comes to the dimensions of the room or the dimensions of the windows, and some additional data that I won't go into detail right now, but yeah, I will mention it when we come to them. But yeah, based on the guidelines that the standards are providing, we provide comments based on those guidelines here for each room if applicable. But yeah, let's take a look at the output here. But before we go into the details and making some modifications on these rooms in order for them to meet the requirements, let's take a look on some other data that data and functionalities that Daylight provides to you. On the left side here we have two more tabs. One of them is window to wall, and here you will be able to see how many walls each room has and what's their orientation, slope, and what is the glass area on each of those walls, which will ultimately give you the window to wall ratio. For the Nordic standard this is not that important, but yeah, for lead and Netherlands regulations this data is required in some cases. So yeah, we have that data also. Then if you go to the Windows tab, you will be able to see a complete list of all the windows within the selected rooms, and of course you will be able to see where those windows are found, on what level and within which room. So yeah, looking at these windows you can also see what's the corrective glass area of each of those windows. So yeah, basically it's giving you a more in-depth knowledge about the elements found within your building, within your rooms. But yeah, that was kind of the overview of the data that we provide to you. I'm gonna go back to the main dialog, and I'm gonna show you some additional functionalities that we have here. Like for example, the autofill required values option. This tool gives you the possibility to predefine some custom required values for certain rooms. So basically you define a list of rooms here and define what will be the required ratio and daylight factor value for those rooms, and define what is the completion height. And those values will be used only for those rooms that you have specified here in this list, which can be a quite useful feature when you want to make some specific modifications for certain rooms. But yeah, I believe that the configurations that we are providing are quite enough to do the calculations correctly. One other functionality that's quite useful is the save results functionality. So this one is saving all the daylight data that we provide and have mentioned here, saves them on the elements directly. So it will save the data on the rooms as instance properties. So your rooms will get some additional daylight parameters, as will your windows. So these parameters that we save on the elements can be reused in scheduling and basically however you want later on. So that's one also quite nice feature that you can use. You can restart your calculations after you have done some modifications. I will come to those modifications soon. Before that, I want to show you some more possibilities that Naviate Daylight provides to you. And these possibilities are related to different ways of how you can document the daylight data. So one functionality that we have, and that's a brand new feature, is the possibility to show the daylight heat map directly on the floor plan. As compared to before, we had a 3D visualization pop-up dialog that gave you a simplified representation of your model or the floor plan where your rooms were found, and a heat map that had quite a few limitations that we needed to resolve, and our customers expressed a big wish to make the necessary changes in order to mitigate these limitations, as for example the possibility to change the color mapping values here. By default, this visualization was using the fixed minimum, average and maximum daylight factor values to show the colors on the heat map, which, as you can see, tells you that these rooms are not getting a lot of light, because the gradients were not set correctly. So that's something that we will fix with this new feature. And when it comes to showing the point values, this implementation, this 3D visualization pop-up dialog, didn't provide very good results. So the performance was not that good, and the visibility, the overview of these points was really bad. So we have decided to make the necessary changes and provide a much better experience when it comes to showing the heat map and working with the heat map itself. So in the upcoming version, you will have the possibility, by clicking on the visualization, to create a separate floor plan and show the heat map directly on that floor plan. As you can see, this looks much better now, and this heat map provides to you much more functionalities when it comes to modifying it and working with it. So in this instance properties of the floor plan, you have the option default analysis display style. This is a Revit functionality that we have reused within our tool to show these analysis results. So here you will be able to select the heat map style. So in our case, it is this one, Naviate Daylight heat map, and you can also use the point values heat map, but I'm going to show that one in a bit. So when it comes to changing the color mapping that I mentioned, here you have all the possibilities that you need to change the different values or different colors on your heat map. So as for example, here, if I want to, instead of gradient, use ranges, in that way I could better or clearer see which parts of the room are below the 2% rule in this case, or if I change this to 1 and apply it, which parts of the room have less than 1% of daylight factor. So when it comes to showing different ranges, you have the possibility to do that, or even if you only want to show the parts of the room that are above 2% and the parts of the room that are below 2%, you can do that with these options. And you can also, as I said, show the point values here, and if I click on this style here, you can also create your own styles, so either a heat map style or color surface or markers with text, and that's the point values. style. So if I click on this one, click OK, you can see the grid points shown in the exact same colors as for the heat map, and also that's something that you can change. If you want to show the point values here, you can do that, but in that case you will need to make some changes on the scale of the plan view. So for example, in this case, if I want to show the point values or the text values of each of these points, I will need to change the scale to be smaller. So in order for this point to be smaller, then open up the style again, and here under text annotation you can change to show all, apply, and OK. Rally performance a little bit decreases, but yeah, if you have a better machine, that's okay. And now you can see each point value individually and figure out which parts of the room are having less than 1% or 2% of daylight factor. So yeah, all the possibilities that are needed to document a appropriate daylight report will be provided to you. So if you want to save this in your project, the best way to do that is to save this view as a image, and you can do that by right clicking on it and save to project as image. But I'm gonna bring this back to the heat map. But as I said, this new feature provides all the necessary functionalities that were wanted in order to make the heat map functionality useful as it's in its best possible way. So yeah, one last documentation functionality that I want to show you is the report. And yeah, actually we have one more floor plan documentation functionality, so to call it, and that's the daylight ratio functionality. And basically you can create similar floor plans as for the heat map, but yeah, those floor plans will be only related to daylight ratio, as this one is only for daylight factor. And the last one that I want to show you is the report option, and this one generates a report out of the data that you see here. So you will get automatically created a Word report which will be available to you to share with your colleagues or share with a daylight consultant, so they can review the data and yeah, give you their opinion. So this is how it looks. We have templates for each different country standard provided. These can be modified, so you can look up these templates in the directory, and you can remove any columns that you don't want to show on this in this report, and yeah, you can use your customized template to generate this report. So yeah, pretty nice functionalities when it comes to documenting. And yeah, I think that was basically it when it comes to documentation. I would maybe just like to conclude this demo by showing you how daylight, what is the workflow with daylight when you want to make the necessary changes in order to meet the requirements of your selected standard. So for example, I'm gonna go back to these indicators here. So for example, for this room here, I would like to see what I can do in order to make this room meet the requirements. So it doesn't meet both daylight ratio and daylight factor. I'm gonna double click on it. As I can see that, yeah, no comments provided, so the shape of the room is good, or it follows the guidelines, and yeah, the size of the window is okay, but still it doesn't get enough light. And as you can see, the average daylight factor is 1.64, which is quite small, and the actual ratio is 7.0, which I guess we are rounding up the values, so that's why it says that it's not meeting the requirements. But anyways, the daylight factor is not satisfied. I'm gonna add one more window in that case, the same as this one. And I can do some more changes to some other rooms, like for example this one, B2. Okay, if I see, if I look more closely, I will see that these windows are quite small. And also when I look on the comment section here, it tells me that the windows in room are too small according to Norwegian building regulations. And if you hover over it, it will give you more details about what is the least window width and window height. But anyways, I know, I can see that they are too small, and the height and width are 52 centimeters, which is quite low. And I'm just gonna change the type of the window to be something larger. I'm gonna use these windows. Okay, then let's see some other rooms that are not meeting the requirements, like for example this one. Double click on it. Okay, this is the same room as this one. I'm just gonna create one more window here. Okay, single bedroom. Which room is that? Okay, this is this room. It meets the daylight ratio requirement, but it does not meet the average daylight factor requirement. And as you have seen the heat map, these shadings here are due to the furniture inside. The bed is creating this shading, so that's not something that is okay with the regulations. So, that's not something that's a common way of doing the analysis. So yeah, I would say that if I removed this furniture in each of these apartments and rerun the calculation, that all of these rooms will meet the requirements. So I think I have made all the necessary changes within this floor plan. In that case, I'm just going to select these rooms again and rerun the calculation. It is also good to mention that the amount of time needed for the analysis to be finished and the accuracy of the analysis itself is quite dependent on the radiance parameters that you are able to set in the settings dialog. But that's something that we will come to as soon as we take a look on these new results. So here they are, the new results. And as you can see, everything is green, so all the rooms on this floor plan are meeting the daylight requirements. So my goal for showing you this workflow was to give you a feel on how daylight can guide you through the design process and give you some straightforward directions on how you can make your building have the best possible daylight performance. So yeah, and now what you can do is save your results as the best results possible when it comes to daylight performance, and have them available on your elements as parameters. So you can schedule it now, you can create tags. So yeah, you can do whatever you can with these parameters, and in the end you can create a new report. Or if you want to see the new heat map, or you can create a new one. So let's see how this new heat map looks. So here we have a second floor plan created. Double click on it. Okay, much better. So yes, this is how the end result of using Naviate Daylight looks. You will get blind within your apartment of that much light. So yeah, that would be the end result. And when compared to the one previously, so let's take a look on that. This is how it looks now. So yeah, we have made some changes when it comes to the number of windows and the size of the windows in certain rooms, and we have also removed the furniture, thus the shading in these rooms is not present anymore. So this is what we get in the end. So yes, I'm pleased with these results that I get here. So then I can continue with my project. Moving on, let's see what the other levels are, what's the performance on other floor plans, and continue and repeat this process again. So in the end, you will meet the regulations and save a lot of time with Naviate Daylight. So when it comes to the feature demo, I think that would be it. Thank you for following this demo, and for the end I would like just to go briefly and talk about the things that we should consider before and after doing the analysis, but that's something that we can take on in another video. Thank you very much for following this demo again.